It's time to check your money with your friendly neighborhood advisor. Mike Jennings is a wealth advisor with Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of LPL Financial, member SIPC. Mike, what's going on? Welcome to
Sir,
May.
welcome to May. It's I was just thinking about that one day we had a couple weeks ago where it messed around and snowed. So I'm trying to keep a positive attitude. We had one day of like 85 degrees last week, and that was listen, I walked outside, started sweating immediately, and I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna complain because this is exactly what I asked for.
We had a little bit of everything last week, but don't
A
trip because
little bit
it
of
has
everything.
snowed on Mother's Day in the past.
It has. It has. So yes. We're not gonna talk about that though. Like I said, we gotta keep positive.
Okay.
We talked about that last time. We gotta get away from the doom and gloom and just stay on target. Keep a sunny personality.
All right. So, what you got going on?
You know what, George, you tell me. I got an interesting article sent to me.
I did. All right.
Yep,
So,
yep, yep.
I came across something that I thought was really interesting, and it's the fact that Americans are not saving. As a matter of fact, the savings rate has gone down significantly, and that was startling to me. What do you make of this?
Absolutely. Yes. And we've seen that trend a lot recently, just in the past few years, and the general market and the general economic environment. And we've covered it quite a bit here in our last episodes. Saving is just something that it's hard. It really is hard, and it's a number of different factors that contribute to that. And some of it we can kind of put on ourselves. Some of it we can just put in the general that there's the general environment. Some things are just long held beliefs. It's a lot of different things that contribute to it. But what hasn't changed is the fact that saving is very important, not just on a short term, not just on a midterm, but the
Mm-hmm.
long term, right? Saving in every sense of the word is so important. So when I got that article from you, I was like, I wasn't surprised, but it's always just hard hitting to see stuff like that. So yeah, and in this article, it spoke of a few different statistics. So 67% of Americans feel behind on their savings goals. And in addition to that, with nearly half, 47%, believing that they'll never reach their targets. And
Mm.
just to think of that, like half of the people that you see every day, half the people that you talk to every day, half the people that you know, that you love, you care about, even the ones you don't care about, half of them feel as if they will never reach their target goals. So I just want to dig into that a little bit, right? So with that, as an individual, you just have to think, right? First of all, do you have a target? It's so
Right.
much harder.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much harder to make progress or recognize even the progress that you have made when you don't even have clear, concise goals and metrics, right? So that's number one. Outside of that, do you even have the ability to save, right? So in the same article, it shows that on average, people can save around $500 a month across the nation, with 30% that can realistically only save about 200. And I can
Mm.
tell you from experience, and even that 200 a month, just putting away somewhere, even that is pushing it in some cases for a lot of people. So it's not just about the willingness to save, it's also just the pure ability. Are you making enough to where after you take care of everything you need to take care of, that you can put away something? It's tough, and a lot of people aren't in that situation. So we have to also consider that as well. What we also have to consider is, do people know how to save? And what I mean when I say that is, people save for many different reasons, whether it's a rainy day fund, emergency fund, whether it's going on a trip, buying a new car, buying a home. Um, and often the largest saving goal out of everything is retirement, right? So studies show from like the Department of Labor, the IRS, it shows that when people are left to their own devices, the average person in the workforce does not have the financial wherewithal to manage their own savings, and their own savings, their own retirement funds, and especially their investments. And this is exactly where the entire concept of managed money comes from, right? That's an entire segment of my whole career, like and what I do, right? Um, and with everything, like, is it solely our own responsibility as far as saving, and is it only the things that we do that contribute to it? And the answer is no, right? A lot of what we see in the market and everything, it's emotional. The market is emotional. If something were to come out in an article and about a certain company or something like that, how people feel about certain
Mhm.
political things, we've seen that a lot recently. It can devastate the profitability, or the just the value, perceived value of a company. So it's not just us. It's all of these factors together. It's the whims of certain powerful people that can take a person's 401k from 500,000 to 300,000, and then you have to figure out, well, where am I gonna make up that difference from when I'm already too late in the game, right? Another statistic from this article: 63% of people with savings accounts have withdrawn some money since the beginning of 2025, and primarily for unexpected expenses, so like 48%, and the other 36%, or another 36%, is for everyday necessities, right?
Like eggs.
And like, oh my, that's the magic word, right? We gotta, that old idiom, who cares, the price of tea in China.
Right.
I think we gotta change that to the price of eggs in America
In
now. That's what we
America.
gotta start saying from now on. But just think about that, right? Like, these are savings with specific goals, whether it's any of those that I mentioned before, something, a little bit more substantial, but people are taking from these and using it on everyday necessities. And we can see why. Our last episode, we talked about tariffs and how those are affecting the market, how those are affecting prices for everyday things. So it's easy to see why people are taking money out, right? Again, everything is becoming more and more unaffordable for people, whether they are overextending themselves with credit purchases, or just dipping into savings that they promised that they wouldn't touch. It's the same result either way. And it's difficult to say what the correct solutions are. Um, and it's easy to say it's easy to say, well, you either need to make more money or you need to spend less money, right? That's easy to say, but every person's situation is different. Every family situation is different. And that's before all of the external economic conditions that also weigh onto that as well. The thing to remember, though, is that an outside perspective, professional perspective, can often lead to creative ways of solving a problem, or ways that you've just never thought about, right? There's an old saying, it's been around for a super long time. I think the most recent person it was attributed to was Abraham Lincoln, I think, but it was a man who is his own lawyer has a fool for a client, right?
Right.
Now, I'm not calling anybody a fool for not knowing certain things, but the idea is that we all have our own ideas, we all have our own biases, our own personal experience, our own histories, and a lot of these things are hard to get past without someone else saying, "Hey, maybe you should reflect a little bit. Maybe you should look and probably try something, a different way of doing something, right?" You see what
Mhm.
I'm saying?
Yeah, I do see what you're saying, and I think, what do we do now?
Um, what do we do is, again, it's hard to answer, but actually there was one more point I want to
Okay.
I want to talk about. It might be a little interesting for the two of us. So it shows, this article, that younger generations are more satisfied with their banks. There was 71% of Gen Z versus 41% of baby boomers. Younger generations are more satisfied with their banks, and yet, in a paradoxical sense, they're also more willing to switch, right?
Right.
Um, if it's one thing that will never change as long as humans exist. It's the differences in generations. So older generations, they came up in a period where loyalty to any and everything was like the golden standard. Like if you drove a Cadillac, you only drove a Cadillac. If you started at a company, that was your job up until either you or the company weren't around anymore. But we see in many cases, like these younger generations, Gen Z, and I don't even know what the new generation is, but these younger generations are not beholden to loyalty with companies or institutions or anything really. What they are interested in is that certain thing can what they can get from it and what you can truly provide to them consistently, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's a key word. Like when that consistency stops, so does their patronage. So like people like me, like as advisors, I'm the youngest millennial. I'm the youngest you can get and still be a millennial. So somebody like me as an advisor who has a goal of introducing generational wealth to people who've never dreamed they could experience that. We just have to be cognizant of each and every new generation and how they operate, not just for ourselves, and our business, but for their sakes too. So tell me, what do you think about that, George? What do you think that generational difference is and how we can get past it?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because we're for those of us who are baby boomers,
Mhm.
it's we're responding to change in a very dynamic society. I mean things are different, devices like this, right? Things of that nature. And so I do think that there are some values of boomers that can be passed along. And this idea about loyalty, well, I think that's out the window now because companies, you know, the days of the gold watch and all of that stuff, that's out the window because companies are no
Yeah.
longer invested in the ways that they used to. So I do think that this idea of younger people switching around a lot more,
Mhm.
I think that's a cultural thing that spans generations. I don't know if there's much of a gap when you think of it that way, but I do think that some of the more conservative habits around boomers, which is, put a little bit away for this, put a little bit away for that, I think those are habits that this generation could learn from.
So yeah, you know what? I agree with you. I think there's a certain element that sort of shifts that narrative, right? So like what you said about change, right? With technology itself, it's from when I was a kid to now, it's exponential
Right.
growth, right? So as a somebody in an older generation who saw that rate shift and accelerate, it's even more of a disconnect. So yeah, it's as time goes on, I think people are less beholden to those things, and it's funny you thought of or you mentioned that the whole golden watch thing is, and a lot of people really don't really understand what that means and what the implications are today. So like before the 70s and the 80s, a good retirement was given to you by your
Mm-hmm.
company, right? If your
Right.
company did good, they offered you a pension so that when you left, they would continue paying you in retirement, and they funded your retirement, right? And then during those 70s and the 80s, it shifted to where a lot more companies were becoming more profitable and things like that, and they saw that it's expensive, sort of kind of paying somebody for the rest of their life. So they shifted the onus. So now the responsibility, it shifted from the employer to the employee. So this is where the birth of the 401k came from, right? So now you're in charge. You're the one that has to say, all right, as an employee, I want to participate in this plan. As an employee, you have to say, okay, I want to put this much into the plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as an employee, I have to be the person to you know manage my investments. And
Mm-hmm.
again, like I said with this, the takes this before, people generally just they just don't have the time to do that. They go to work, They work and they leave work. Anything else outside of that is, beyond their scope of, what they're focused on. So that's where things like target date funds come from, right? That automatic thing with 401ks. But we're getting a little bit into the weeds. So really, if anything here has resonated with you, then please give your friendly neighborhood advisor a call at 315-748-5540, or send me a quick note at michael.jennings@brackensfsn.com.
All right. Mike Jennings is a wealth advisor at Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of LPL Financial, member SIPC. He is your friendly neighborhood advisor.